Okay, thank you, David. I'm Stephen Leist, and I am the editor-in-chief of Virginia Libraries, and I would like to welcome everyone to this webinar today for new authors interested in publishing with Virginia Libraries. As David stated, this webinar is being recorded and will be available to registrants. There is also going to be a Q&A session at the end, and you may use the hand signal to be recognized or use the chat function to ask your question. The chat will be monitored for that. So let's get started with why you should publish with Virginia Libraries, presented by the 2024 Virginia Libraries Editorial Board. So where we're headed, what we're going to do over the next half hour or so. There will be some introductions of the editorial board and the journal. Some of the top things to know about publishing with Virginia Libraries, as I mentioned, a Q&A session, and also perhaps some brainstorming and idea sharing if you have some things that you would like to see in Virginia Libraries. Next. So writing does pose challenges. What are some of the things that prevent us from writing? Well, one is time. We may not have enough time or feel like we don't have enough time. Another is intimidation. Maybe we don't think we write all that well. Maybe we don't think somebody else is going to be interested in our ideas. Well, just like as in a classroom, when people don't want to ask a question, it's very likely that there are other people who have the same question. So we encourage sharing your ideas. Maybe, and this is related to topic, maybe you don't think the topic is important. Please bring it forward. We always like to take a look at these things. And remember, the editorial board is here to help you through that process. So writing doesn't always come from strength. You're putting yourself out there in front of all of your colleagues. So remember, we are all colleagues and we want to share this process. Next. So let's begin. Writing does take dedication and commitment. And like any exercise, any movement is better than no movement. And when I am often teaching an information literacy session and talking about some of the processes with writing and the research being peer reviewed, oftentimes the faculty member will interject and share with the students. They feel like the whole process makes them a better writer. Next. So here is the list of the editorial team. Myself as editor-in-chief, Bettina Peacemaker, who is the managing editor, and David Black, the assistant editor, and he is also behind the Zoom today. Veronica Fu, Joanna Lee, Amy Poe, Jennifer Razor-Wicker, Kristen Schuyler, and Elizabeth Weir. And you see, we all come from different kinds of libraries and experiences. Next.
All right, Bettina Peacemaker here. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about the journal, and then we'll get into the 5 things that you need to know. We are affiliated with Virginia Libraries Association and published by Virginia Tech Publishing. And we publish insights and best practices from libraries in Virginia. So if you are a librarian from Virginia, or if you are writing about anything that librarians in Virginia would be interested in, this is the publication for you. Now, everything does not need to be laser focused on Virginia or state issues. It can be broader in terms of things people would be interested in. So I think a helpful way of thinking about it might be, if this is something that you would present or that you would see presented or you would propose for the Virginia Libraries Association conference, that's the type of content that we would be within our scope. And in fact, if you have presented something and you would like to write about it, or you're going to, this is a great venue for that. As we are headed towards the proposal deadlines for the Virginia Libraries Association conference pretty soon. You can always contact us. We'll talk about how to do that a little bit later. If you ever have any questions about whether something would be acceptable, or you can also ask us today during the Q&A. If you do want to get in contact with us or look through our previous content in order to kind of get an idea of the types of articles that we publish, you want to check out our website. Our contact information is also available there. And if, for information about becoming a peer reviewer or getting involved, all of that will be available there. We are also on X, previously known as Twitter, and we will post information about articles that we have published or events or things that we have coming up. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the top 5 things to know about publishing in the journal. Next. All right, you can submit articles at any time. We publish 1 issue per year on a rolling basis. That means that we accept articles throughout the year and we publish them as they go through the publication process, as they finish the publication process. And then we end the issue every year and we start a new one. But the key point is here, no deadlines. You can submit anytime you're ready to submit. Next.
All right, next, I wanted to talk about the different types of articles. So there are a series of different formats that you can submit an article in. And these are of different word length limits, somewhere usually in the range from 2,000 at the shortest to 5,000 words maximum, just depending on the type of article that you are choosing to write. And as Bettina mentioned, this is about libraries throughout Virginia. Not just academic libraries, but also public libraries, special libraries, any type of library. If it exists in Virginia, we would love to hear more about it. So next, the different types of articles. So there are essays and commentaries. These are kind of the more subjective pieces that you can write about, where you talk about your position or your perspective on any issue that's of interest to Virginia libraries. Next, we have themed columns. Themed columns synthesize kind of brief reports on a topic from libraries across the state. These are a little bit different because you must first submit a proposal, and we do ask that you talk to librarians at least 4 different institutions so that you're casting a wide net and kind of getting a survey of different perspectives throughout the state. Next. There are case studies. Case studies address issues that are currently affecting libraries in Virginia, focusing on a narrow set of circumstances, and then describing the issue with an applied context. And ideally, they should have a training and educational purpose behind them. Next. Best practice. These articles they take a larger, kind of more holistic view of an issue in the state, and provide a real world solution to that problem. Next. And last but not quite last, but the last type of article we're really going to talk about are research articles, which are what a lot of people think about. It's kind of the traditional, literature review, original research, submitting your ideas through this venue. And then finally, last but not least, we have editorials. And these are written either by the editorial board or members of the staff. So you don't really have to worry so much about those. That falls on us. All right, next slide, please. Virginia Libraries is an open access journal, and this is something we've always felt very strongly about. So anything that you choose to write will be openly accessible. They are all published with a Creative Commons license, which you will get to choose. And we do not charge any author fees. Next.
Hi, Kristen Schuler here. So I'll talk about the process. You'll get feedback at multiple stages along the way. Next. So first, you submit a manuscript to our website. Again, with the themed column, you would be submitting a short proposal before that. And I can talk about the experience of that, going through that in a minute. Next, you will your piece will be reviewed by the editor, and then the piece will either be sent to peer review or editorial review, depending on the type of article. Next, the manuscript is either accepted or revisions are requested or rejected after the peer review or editorial review. Next, if the manuscript's accepted, it'll be moved to copy editing. And then at the next stage, you will have a chance to review the copy edits, provide feedback on them, or approve them. And then next, the article is laid out and typeset. And next, you'll have the chance to review the proof and approve it or provide feedback if needed. And then next, the article is published on our website. And eventually, it gets included in other indexes and sources as well. So next slide. We're here to support you through that process. We really want to invite and include new editors in the publication realm. I can speak as a former author that I submitted a themed column, I think in 2017, and I got extremely helpful editorial feedback that really improved the column. And it was just a great, smooth process overall. And that's one reason I decided to join the advisory board, or the editorial board, sorry. So we're here to help you. You can reach out with questions by using the email there on the screen, or there's also a contact form on our website. And next, thanks.
Hi, I'm Liz Weir, and if you're not quite ready to submit an article yet, there are other ways that you can get involved with the journal. Next slide. As mentioned before, you could become a peer reviewer. So this is really helpful especially for submitting people submitting research articles, to really get that good feedback. In order to become one, you just click on the account button on the homepage of our website, and you can register there. This is a great way to share your topic of interest and expertise. You don't have to be a peer reviewer for every single article that comes in. You can always have the option to decline. Next.
Hello, I'm Joanna, and I'm new to the editorial board this year. The other members have been so warm and welcoming. It's been a very positive experience so far, and the time commitment is very reasonable, 2 to 4 hours a month, depending on the volume of submissions. Serving on the board, it's a great way to get more familiar with the editorial process, and it's an opportunity to meet colleagues outside your own institution, and of course also outside your own range of experience from all over Virginia. So I encourage you to keep an eye out for the invitation to join the editorial board next fall, and consider applying. It's another way to get involved. Okay, next slide. So next, we're going to move on to Q&A and brainstorming. Before I do, I just want to remind you that the session's being recorded. As David said, you can drop questions in the chat, or you can email us outside of this session anytime if you prefer. Next slide. Okay, so we welcome your questions. Do you have any questions about submitting to the journal, editorial process, peer review? What does that look like? The writing process, anything we've touched on so far. We'll do our best to answer your questions.
So there is a question here in the chat about what percentage of articles are accepted and rejected. And I don't know if Bettina or Stephen, maybe one of you could speak to that.
I think we both can, since these are some things that we have each worked on. Most often, ones that get rejected are ones that come from outside the United States. And that is because the issues that they are focused on are not really connected with what's happening in librarianship in this country, or it discusses a technology that we don't use, or some other kind of system that we don't use. And so it's not a topic that would be beneficial to our readers. And that's really been my main experience with rejecting copy. So Bettina, do you have anything else to add?
I don't. I haven't looked at our analytics recently, so I can't give a percentage, but we're largely looking for scope at the initial stage of review. There is another question in the chat for people who are new and a little bit intimidated. Are there standard resources the board would recommend for Research 101 for librarians or something like that?
This is Kristen. I can offer one resource that I really like. I wrote my first solo research article a couple years ago. And even though I had published a lot before that, I had always published with someone else, and it really intimidated me. So I ended up looking at a book called Write Your Journal Article in 12 Weeks. I think that's the title. I'll go double check. I didn't do it in 12 weeks, but I really did follow a lot of the suggestions, the process, and I found it really helpful. That book is focused on a traditional research article with a literature review and everything. I think the only other option I would suggest for folks writing other articles like themed columns or the other pieces in the journal is I would recommend looking at what has been published in the past in the journal. I got the idea from my themed column. I mean, I had the idea, but I got the idea to publish it as a themed column after I was contacted by a Virginia Library's column writer to include information about our library in his column. And then I said, oh, I can also do a similar column piece on a different topic. So looking at the previous articles in our journal for those other types would be a great place to start.
Does anyone else have any advice? Something you said, Kristen, at the beginning was that you had worked with someone else. And I think that may also be something to think about if there is someone, a colleague, or doesn't even have to be a colleague at your library, but someone that you like working with and you know that your styles, and they may have they may be able to bring something to the table, like, maybe they know SPSS or something like that will then allow you to learn from that. And also I find it very helpful just sort of in terms of creativity and ideas, having someone else who is working with me on something.
And I can't name another resource offhand. All I know is that I've seen them in the Z section of my library. But for some handbooks, I feel pretty confident that ALA Publishing has something in their publications about how to write an article or different kinds of articles as part of their professional and educational development of librarians.
I also think, just like what Stephen mentioned at the beginning, is that writing is hard, and the hardest part about it is just getting started. So if you have an idea, just start brainstorming, just start writing things out and see what comes of it. Because, nothing's quite as intimidating as that blank page.
And also I find it useful, especially if I'm looking to write something, of putting appointments in my calendar just to give me time to do it, because oftentimes things always get busy, things always come up, and you always have an excuse not to write. But if you put that appointment in there, hopefully no other meetings or anything will be scheduled during that time, and then you can take that time to read some of the publications that Bettina has been putting into the chat, and or maybe just to get started with that, because I agree with David. The hardest thing is to get started. Like that's it. But once you get started, it'll flow a little easier.
And with getting something on paper, even if it's just like random notes, maybe a possible outline, bring something with you if you are thinking about writing. So that way when an idea does come to you, use something immediately available to you that you can just jot your idea down. And then when you have a chance to at your desk or on your couch or whatever, you can look back at that and look at it with fresh eyes.
All right, Jennifer, do you want to go to the next slide? And these are things that either you can take with you, or, you know, if anybody wants to throw out ideas now and kind of start that collaboration process going, these are just, you know, some questions to look at, to read, to think about, like, oh, you know, maybe there is an idea there for some research, you know, and like we said, if maybe you start and it comes out to be a poster for VLA, or maybe it comes out to be a short talk, a lightning talk, maybe it comes out to be some sort of an essay or commentary, maybe it turns into a whole research paper. Anything that you would do would, I mean, be great. So, and oftentimes you can end up writing up a poster for an article in Virginia Libraries. It's just a matter of, you know, getting it into that other format. So I'm not going to read these out loud. I assume everyone is capable of reading. But if anybody has ideas that they want to throw out, please do. All right, in that case, I think we can give you some 3 minutes back here, for lunch or whatever you got going on. So thank you all for coming, and we will post this later. Not sure exactly where. I think it was on the VLA YouTube last year, but we will post it and we will send out a link directing everyone to where that is. And thank you all.
And thank you, David, for hosting.